Classic TBC has finally been officially announced. We've had a deep dive panel and even some interviews. Well, what did Blizzard say? Hello and welcome. I am so excited. Even though the announcement for the Burning Crusade Classic was leaked by Blizzard themselves the day before BlizzCon, I just needed to hear it from someone up on that stage. And here we are, team. It's finally an official thing, which means a lot of the time I spent on videos wasn't a complete waste, which is good. I wanted to make a video on this a bit sooner than this is going to go up, but quite honestly, I just kind of got lost in talking to my friends about all the things that we had heard or all the interviews that were coming out after BlizzCon. Either way, I wanted to put together a video about what we do know now. So being late has actually been helpful, but what we do know now and some quick thoughts on them. Without further ado, let's just go. Let's get a couple of cleanup items out of the way. First, there is no official release date yet for the pre-patch or for the launch of TBC Classic. Blizzard did confirm that the Burning Crusade Classic will be launching in 2021, but that is literally all we have to go off of. My personal guess is that Phase 6 will be a little bit longer than it was originally in vanilla, and we'll see the pre-patch drop around late April, early May, with the official launch sometime in late July or early August. There will be no fresh TBC servers or gold cap when progressing into the Burning Crusade. While I know many people would like to implement this, the reality is that removing honestly acquired gold from players would be one of the worst decisions Blizzard could ever make. There is a significantly larger problem that messes with the economy, and punishing honest players is misguided and would cause so much more backlash than I think people really consider. Also, it's kind of just bad design to arbitrarily and artificially remove currency from players for the sake of others. It's just a bad feeling.
You know, rather than always giving them like the last version of the boss, the final form of the boss, which maybe is been hit with a few nerfs, let's not do that anymore. Let's give them a more challenging version of the boss.
This is far more exciting to me than it probably should be. I had long accepted that my crazy 5-day raid week from the Burning Crusade wouldn't be necessary come the classic version. I had long accepted that the raid content would be in its 2.4.3 state, and I was actually content with this. However, Blizzard confirming that the raid bosses will be in their pre-nerf state is so exciting, since raids will obviously be more challenging than they normally would have been, but it's also going to be a fun retrospective to just see how much game knowledge actually affects player potential. This does raise a question, though, about the heroic dungeons. For those who don't know, patch 2.1 nerfed almost everything in heroic dungeons by quite a bit. It might be safe to assume that heroic instances will also be in their original state, given that we're getting pre-nerf bosses, but that is something that I would like to have really confirmed.
It was intended to be equivalent power abilities that were just slightly different in flavor, but in retrospect, Seal of Blood was just so much better. And so one of the changes that we are going to make is we are going to give the opposite faction's seal to the other faction, but we're going to do that at max level.
Paladins can rejoice. The faction-specific seals will be available to both factions upon reaching level 70. I think the value of this change is actually larger than the change itself. This will alleviate a lot of Alliance Paladins who wished to play Retribution, and it will also buff Horde threat, since Seal of Vengeance was better threat generation for Protection Paladin anyway. However, most importantly, this definitely proves that Blizzard is more willing to make some direct changes to classes if it's for the betterment of the experience as a whole. Honestly, the Paladin Seals are a very small part of the faction balance issue with the Burning Crusade. Orc, Undead, and Blood Elf racials are just all superior to Alliance racials in every way. While racials are leaps and bounds a higher problem than the Seals, this change might point towards Blizzard adjusting racial slightly. This also might open the door to have some other changes that would be incredibly healthy for the game. Drums of battle.
Frustrating. So we're definitely going to go with like the last version of that, where you could have twice the size of the bracket on your team roster, so that you had alternates you could swap in and out, and then that way, as long as anybody had participated in, I think, 30% of the matches, then they got the full credit for the week of participation.
Nice.
We're going to give players access to Blood Elf and Draenei early, so that before we actually open the Dark Portals, you'll have a chance to level those up. That's definitely not something we did originally.
I remember I had a friend who was really frustrated that the rest of us were all running around in Outland, and he was like, I'm still back in Wetlands. Yeah.
I had already made a video about my thoughts on when Blood Elf and Draenei should release, so I won't repeat myself too much here. If you do want my full thoughts, then please click that card above and check out that video after this one. Blizzard releasing these two factions on pre-patch is completely fine. I didn't feel too strongly either way on this one, since there are genuine pros and cons to releasing these races on pre-patch versus launch. However, it is also really nice to know that other players who are re-rolling or returning to the game can level up during the pre-patch period in order to join their friends at Outland. And I don't think too many people are going to be upset about that.
The content phases that we got coming are exciting. We're going to start with Karazhan and Gruul's Lair and Magtheridon's Lair. And we want to start with just that released because we found with Classic that people really enjoy that kind of gear progression, and that's where all the tier 4 gear is with those raids.
They did it, team! They actually did it! Tier 4 and Tier 5 are being split, and honestly, I still think this is definitely the correct call to make. If we're all being honest with ourselves, this content was practically already split pretty aggressively during the live game, given the attunement process and just how difficult the content was at the time. Gruul and especially Magtheridon were incredibly difficult during the day, and Mag's Lair was legitimately known as a guild breaker. I do have to admit that there are some good arguments as to why Tier 4 and 5 should be released at the same time. Christine of the channel Serious Gaming has some genuinely good points regarding this issue, and he favors Tier 4 and Tier 5 releasing at the same time. However, I've said this before, and people really tend to underestimate just how much of an impact game pacing has on players. Pacing is arguably one of the most important elements to any game ever, and this split ensures that the pacing across Classic TBC's life will be better, especially for that first year or so. However, this phase schedule still now opens up a lot of questions, and also seriously needs some changes. Questions first. When are the Skedis and Orgrimmar dailies opening up? Is it going to be launch, or are we going to be waiting for Phase 3 with the Black Temple in order to line up with their original patch 2.1 release? Will attunements be in their original state, or will they be non-existent when they were removed in late TBC? When will the AoE damage cap be brought in? This was introduced in patch 2.2, which doesn't actually fall into any of these phases. Patch 2.2 and the AoE damage cap would line up kind of between phase 3 and 4, so will it be introduced into one of these patches or at launch? Personally, I would argue that the AoE damage cap should be implemented during the pre-patch, so that all of the new Draenei and Blood Elves are forced into the open world to fill it up with returning players, rather than just being instance boosted to 60. If Blizzard doesn't do that, then it should at least be implemented at the launch of Classic TBC. Which haste values are we going to have? Haste went through several changes during the Burning Crusade, and arguably the final change, while benefiting casters greatly, nerfed melee incredibly badly during an expansion where being melee was already hard enough. Will we get the modification that I'm personally hoping for, where we get the patch 2.1 values, but with the 2.2 change for channeled spells? Will badges drop in Karazhan at launch, or do we have to wait until phase 4 with the introduction of ZA, just like in the original launch of TBC? Will there be progressive itemization or not? I would probably lean no, because they seem to say they're using the 2.43 data, but we still don't know for sure. There is something we need to address with this phase schedule though. When I first looked at this, I didn't even notice how bad the arena season lineup was, but wow, oh boy, this seriously needs to change. Arena Season 1 needs to be in the game at launch with Tier 4. No argument. Tier 4 and Season 1 rewards are incredibly close in power, and this would work perfectly. Just look at the Gladiator Spellblade and the Nathrazi Mindblade, for example. The Kara Dagger is just slightly more powerful, but the complete lack of resilience makes it a riskier pick than the Spellblade in PvP. This is the type of balance and choice that the resilience stat assists with. You can have equivalent or just slightly more powerful PvE gear, but that resilience is just too dang good. Arena Season 2 also needs to come out alongside Tier 5. The crafted items that are introduced in Tier 5 and some of the Tier 5 drops in general are just so much more powerful than the Season 1 items, and it would shatter the Arena Season. Again, in the original TBC, this wasn't an issue, since not a single person in the world had even killed Kael'thas before Black Temple released alongside Season 2. That's not going to be the case today, and the Tier 5 gear and Season 2 arena gear are just so tightly tuned together. Let's use another caster example here with the Merciless Gladiator's War Staff and the Nexus Key from Kael'thas. You can just see how close these items are, and in fact the PvP staff could be argued to be slightly better because of the hit rating. However, if you don't need hit, then the extra crit strike and the spell power absolutely outweigh the potential of the PvP gear in Raid. Again, this is a perfectly reasonable balance between the gear. Gladiator. Arena Season 3 should be dropping with the Black Temple and Hyjal again, since Vengeful Gladiator items are just barely under Tier 6 quality. Season 3 can just last slightly longer to extend through ZA, and the Season 4 and Brutal Gladiator items can then drop alongside Sunwell as it had originally been. These changes to the arena season desperately have to happen in this order, or the arena balance is going to be insanely favored to PvE gear, which it's just not a good experience for anybody involved. So Blizzard has also finally told us how we're going to be progressing through these expansions, and they're doing a thing called Choose Your Era. So we have three options. The first option is to just continue through. The servers that we're on now are basically going to progress through every expansion that they release as part of the classic system. The second option is to lock your character into a classic era only server. You'll have everything that you currently have, but you cannot progress then up. You are locked in that expansion there. Option 3 is to get option 1 and 2 and move your character to both things, but for a cost. So there it is. There's the money that people were waiting to see how Blizzard would screw everything up by charging people for something, and it's completely and utterly fine. It's really not a big deal. It makes kind of sense. It's honestly not surprising that they're trying to monetize at least some element of classic WoW, and specifically the way they're monetizing this and the logic behind it actually kind of makes sense. By copying and duplicating your character across these two sides of a realm that they have to maintain, you are increasing your data footprint, and that does cost money. Now, the big controversial part will be, how much does it cost? Is it $10, $15? If it's those prices, I don't think it's much of a problem. If we start hitting the $25, $35 mark, well, that's a lot. Now, about this boost,
I know there's a lot of my friends, for example, who maybe didn't really play Classic when it first came out, right? And so now they're behind, and they're interested in playing the Burning Crusade. This was, for a lot of people, their favorite expansion that we've done. We want to make sure that those people are served too. And one of the ways we could do that is provide a boost to people who are interested in coming back, that maybe aren't interested in doing the classic WoW experience, but really want to hop right into Outland as quickly as possible.
Oh, and there it is. We all knew there would be something controversial coming with this announcement, and here we are. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, though, let's go over the details of the boost. This boost will bring a character to level 58 with 40% mount training, some dungeon blues, and that's it. There is just so much to unpack here, though. I'm not going to be able to have a full conversation in this video alone, so I might end up making an entire video dedicated to this topic, but here's my initial gut reaction. The fact that this boost is available once per account at least super mitigates much of the negative consequences to the boosts. There genuinely are so many people who have no interest in vanilla at all, but would love to play TBC, and several of my friends are that exact way. The fact that this boost also can't apply to Blood Elf or Draenei also solves the leveling problem so that Alliance and Horde can't instantly reroll to the new classes, and there is some effort that has to go in there. Honestly, it's a fair compromise. However, the sheer existence of this boost just does raise some serious issues. Having a boost in general super devalues leveling in the old world, which is always a bad experience to the game, and we've seen that with modern WoW. This could definitely further exacerbate the botting problem now as well, since bots will now have instant access to TBC content, as well as the ability to overlevel all old world materials. Something important to TBC is that the old world of the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor are still incredibly useful, which is something many seem to forget. Overall, I'm not a fan of this boost, but I also think the negative impact it has might be a bit overstated. So just as I was wrapping up writing this script, two extra things from interviews just kind of dropped that I think are very important. The first is that we will be operating on the patch 2.3 leveling rate, the XP rate that was introduced in the Zul'Aman patch, which is like about 25 to 30% faster on average, and people will be getting their mounts at level 30. That has been confirmed to be taking place during the whole life of the Burning Crusade. Cool. Second, and a very important thing for this video, is the fact that they have acknowledged that the leatherworking drum meta is a problem. Good. So Blizzard agrees. People in your raid should have leatherworking, at least some, in order to have drums of battle, because they're cool, which they are. And they agree that not everybody in your raid should have leatherworking, because it's dumb. And it's really dumb. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for getting me here and for being here with me on this lovely day. This has been an exciting weekend for me, that's for sure. If you did like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for a lot more classic TBC content. I've already got a pretty good backlog going on in the channel, so if you want to see some really cool stuff and you want to talk about some game design and you want to see what how to do some things in the Burning Crusade, take a look. If you made it this far and you think that my opinions suck and that I'm ugly or whatever, hit the dislike button and let me know what you don't like, because it helps me. I appreciate that. If you also want to, please follow me on Twitch, as I will be continuing to stream my TBC preparation, and that'll be happening way more fervently now because we have definitely something to look forward to now. And also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, then you can see my ramblings about video games as a whole. Thank you again so much for watching. Thank you all for getting me here. This level of growth for such a small channel has been so exciting, and you all have been so awesome in the conversations that you provide in the comments below. And even when you disagree, everybody seems to be very respectful and passionate, and that's awesome. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!